Welcome back, travelers. We're discussing Inception on the Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast. So, Satchel, what's this movie about? No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously. Is it about dreams? You know? Is it about what's real? What's real in the movie?
There are so many layers.
Right.
That's actually a good question. What do you think it's about?
You know, I feel like, I mean, obviously, like the plot is the Leonardo DiCaprio's character like wants to get back to his family, like back to his two kids, and when I was rewatching it the other day, I watched it twice after not having seen it for many years at this point. So I rewatched it the first time and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, this is a good movie. And then I rewatched it again, and like early on we see a couple shots of like his kids who we like don't see their faces until I think at the end you see their faces.
Yes, you do.
But I started wondering, like, are those kids real? Like, do they really exist in the world, or in the world of the movie, or are they just kind of this representation of like this life that him and Mal could have had together? Do you know what I mean? Like, are they a real memory, or are they just a dream? You know?
For me, For me, I have 2 points. The first point is to what you just said, where for me, it seems like Cobb is the least likely to be hallucinating, because he was cognizant enough to confess to Ellen Page the premise behind the projections of Mal in his dreams, that essentially, you know, she was the sole reason things went awry in his work, and frankly, I could completely understand his guilt around just leaving her around. Like, at first it seems like love and sentiment, but then you find out that in order to ensure, at least from what I understand, in order to ensure that Mal would leave limbo, he implanted the idea that her reality was false in her head. And then this leads to her eventual suicide, where she comes back into the, you know, where she thinks she's going to come back into the real world, but she doesn't. And at first it seems like delirium, but then you start to realize that he had the cognizance to realize that he implanted a fake idea in her head, and that led to her suicide. Meanwhile, he knew that he was in the real world and that she would die. So in my head, that leads me to believe that when Cobb is in the real world, he's actually in the real world. Right. Because I don't know exactly how he would fool himself, since he's the only person who successfully pulled off Inception.
Right. I mean, is that something that can happen? Like, can he be so good at it that he fools himself into it? You know what I mean?
And that makes me wonder if he could, because he himself has been delirious, and this whole film he's been in denial, because he's willing to let Mal sabotage the lives of himself and his entire team because of pride and delirium. So it's that to the second point, it's very possible.
I read this interesting thing, and so people have debated the film. You know, obviously spoilers at this point, but like the film ends with Cobb spinning his totem, the thing that reminds him of what is reality and stuff, of it spinning and then it cutting to black before we ever find out if it falls over or not. And so, you know, Christopher Nolan, I feel like that gets people talking about. I mean, it gets us talking about it right now. Like, what is real? Is it really happening and stuff? And I feel like people get so angry when they're like, well, did it fall over? Like, what happened? That was something that they just like kind of like fixated on.
Which kind of isn't the point, but
yeah. It's about the journey, and it's not about the destination kind of thing. But like, I did read this interesting theory that like
all you nihilists out there.
I know, yeah, right.
Just kidding.
No, I read this thing that like Cobb is dreaming like the entire time. So when he goes to see Yusuf, and Yusuf makes that compound to like make multiple dream layers,
right?
More than 3 dream layers possible. He tests it, and he has this dream of Mal, and then he wakes up and it's so deep that he runs in the bathroom to spin his totem,
right?
And before we see the totem fall over or keep spinning or anything, Saito comes in and interrupts him before we get to see what happens. So there's this theory out there that like,
whoa,
from that point on in the movie, we never really
we
don't know if that's like a reality or not.
Oh shoot!
Yeah,
I have to rewatch it for that part. I never.
Yeah,
noticed that.
the last time I rewatched it, I was like, oh my god, yeah, this totally happens, and you don't get to see it. I don't know if that's just kind of, I can't say for a film as complex as this. Part of me can justify an oversight like that, but part of me can also be like, no, that has to be intentional. That has to.
In my head, that has
something.
to be intentional. That they would just leave it open ended like that.
Right. It's nuts, man. It's like there's so many things to it. It's just like, and then at that point, it's like, was everything leading up to that real, or was everything
right? See, for
after
me,
that just the dream?
What's interesting is that, like, when you asked what this movie was about, that was actually a really hard answer for me, and the answer that you gave seems like the right one that should have came to mind. But for me, I guess Cobb is the protagonist, and it really is following his life, and this whole mission is taking place because he wants his redemption for the murder that he didn't commit so that he could be reunited with his family. It makes perfect sense that that's the centerpiece. In my head, though, the movie was about Robert Fisher. Like, it was about Maurice's son. It was, it was about the tension with his father and like human fragility, if that's a word. You know, and for me, like, the story arc was like centered around like him understanding where his father came from, and I was so curious to know the details of that relationship, and I thought what was really cool, and I mean, I don't know if that's just because like I'm a son or something, but like I thought that it was interesting that Saito, like, when they first talk about, like, you know, the idea of being hired for Inception, like, Saito says so matter-of-factly, like, the connection with the father is the most important, like, that's the root of everything emotionally. And
that makes sense. And I think it adds to Cobb's struggle, too, because, I mean, he has that relationship with his father, and I think he says early on, he's like, I have been doing what you taught me to do. You know, so he's kind of following in his father's footsteps, maybe not the way his father would have liked, but he kind of is, and now is in this predicament that, you know, he has to get out of, and Michael Caine even says to him, he's like those children need their father. They don't need gifts. They need you to be there. You know, yeah. That is kind of like a deeper thought. I almost feel like this movie is about obsession. You know, and kind of the creative struggle that can happen when you obsess over creating things so much. Like, so much of this movie is spent on creating and perfecting and getting about people getting lost in that and getting like wrapped up in it. I mean, not the entire movie, but, you know, like a lot of the Cobb story, a lot of the Mal's kind of backstories that they just got so wrapped up in creating that they ignored the rest of the world and what happens and stuff. And you know, as a creative person and someone who makes things, I can totally see that. Like, it's easy to get trapped in that, to get that tunnel vision and get like kind of like lost in it.
And to forget what's real. That's right.
And to forget what's important. Yeah.
And they spent so much, what's key about that is that they spent so much time recreating the world that they already knew.
Right.
Like that's what they were spending the entire time. They were essentially like co-heirs in like architecting this. Right. The architecting is not a word, but you know what I mean. Like architecting this entire universe, but just
replicating.
Replicating it world, just for them. And Man, that's so. This whole film is analogous to, two films in a kind of way. I often feel like if I spend too much time like working through or trying to recreate something, I can lose a sense of reality. Like,
right.
I don't know.
And there is a nice moment too, like when you snap back into it, you're like, oh, you kind of like reevaluate, like, what have I been doing and when have I been, like, I will get it. I'll get so wrapped up in a detail that I'll spend hours on a minute detail that only I notice. And a lot of times I'll just be like, man, I just wish, this is going to sound kind of conceited, but I wish I didn't care that this looked shitty. You know, like I wish that I was okay with this. I wish I was all right with mediocrity. You know?
Yeah. No, you know? Dude, I totally get. You think I'm gonna judge you on that, dude? No, I'm totally with you on that, dude.
But yeah, and that can take up so much of your time and effort, and then you have this moment where you snap back and you're like, wait, I just spent X amount of hours, X amount of time doing this. It doesn't matter, like, dude, that, and that's almost like your kick back into reality. Where
I
you're
totally
just like,
get you, yeah.
You know, and I wonder if, like, it's going to sound mean too, but like, you know, people who invest that much time into like a video game or something like that. Like, I think about like MMOs and like Minecraft, and you know, Minecraft is an incredibly powerful tool and it's interesting and it's all well and good, but you're creating this world that's based on, like you were saying, that's based off of this world that we already live in. And then at some point you kind of kick back into reality and be like, wow, so much time was spent on that. And here I am here and I don't have anything to show for it. You know what I mean? Like, what?
Yeah, it's true.
it's and I feel like that is kind of like, for me, watching it again was like a larger theme in the movie. It was just like this idea of sculpting this and what does it say about us and what does it say about what we do? Like, so much of what you and I do is replicating a reality, replicating things that exist, and it's just like, it's already there. It's already there. We just have, now we're trying to like recreate it in this weird way.
There are so many different ways that conversation could go. For me, my knee-jerk reaction, I don't necessarily have like a direction for it, but I think about that specifically, what you just said, a lot. And I think we're here, right? Like, on Earth, right? Oh gosh, that sounds so heavy. We're not going there. We're not going there. All right, we're here. Okay. We're here, right? And we're kind of like around this creation like all the time, you know, like created things, right? Whether we're like, you know, for me, I don't know, I can draw inspiration from hiking, right? Or going canoeing, right? Or or going to the movie theater, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You know, watching other people's work, and we're around these creative things all the time. And you know, our natural inclination is to like capture the small things that we find beautiful in those things, whether it's like nature or I don't know, something that someone else did, usually in reaction to like some kind of nature, whether it's like physiological nature, human nature, whatever. And like whatever we make is always like, it'll always be different, but it'll always be a faint version of like this ultimate thing.
Yeah,
you know?
It's a remix of a remix, man.
Yeah. And you know, there are conversations about, well, can you ever make anything original? You can't. Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You know, it's not worth getting wrapped up in a way that you can or not, because if people are moved by it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I think there's always like this internal struggle with like making something that's just a mere reflection of an ultimate thing, and always wondering if it lands properly or if it doesn't, and having those moments where like you have a kick. Or even for me, like I feel like if I'm constructing a world, I don't write much fiction, but let's say I do, like, and I will, like, in my journal once in a while, or Like if I'm doing like a short film or something, I'll often obsess over this. You predicted it. Like I'll obsess over this specific thing, like this specific topic. Like just now I did it's totally cool if like we like mix. I mean, I guess it makes sense if we mix like talking about movies and then talking about film oriented things that we're doing. Like,
yeah,
so I was
totally.
I was experimenting with, never mind. I'm doing it. This is my podcast too. Deal with it.
Of course, man. I know. Yeah, why would you not be able to do that? Of course you can.
Yeah. I was experimenting with slow motion. And
oh yeah, dude, I saw it. It was great.
And okay, cool. That's cool to hear that. I thought, because when you watch yourself, it's always weird because you never know, right? And I didn't know. All I knew was that there were specific things that I wanted to do, that I wanted to see how they would capture in slow motion, but like specifically like quick muscle jerks and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, but at the same time, like I was getting wrapped up in the. I was getting wrapped up in the idea of this story, like this small story that has no explanation, that's kind of about like internal grief, right? And you know, I didn't, you know, it sounds over dramatic, and I didn't go there, but like these are the things that were going through my mind inevitably,
right?
And because I wanted to screw with light and create some sort of like scene in some kind of way. It's just like 30 seconds long. But
yeah.
As I was like working through how it would work, and it just all took place in my head, and like the paper app for iPad where you just like you could just sketch like storyboards out or whatever.
Yeah.
I was obsessing over that one specific thing, and that was for a short amount of time because that was just an afternoon that I wanted to do the test. But in other creative things where I just have full creative reign, I've obsessed over other things, and I have to have those moments where like I spin my totem and it's like, whoa, that actually didn't matter as much, or like I work meticulously on this one thing, and then I show someone and they're like, oh, but what was that about? And I was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, I didn't really tell the story that well. Like I needed to spin my top and realize, no, that doesn't actually play out well in the real world.
Right.
It looks great to me because I know exactly everything that's going on, you know,
but and you
I
have
got
appreciation
lost
for that. And sometimes it's about knowing your audience and knowing what they're going to focus on, you know, what
that's
they're
true
like,
too. Definitely.
You know, it's like when you take a picture of something and you're like, oh man, check this out. And then someone's just like, yeah, but you see that guy in the background? I'm like, yeah, about the guy in the background. It's
Yeah, no, yeah. Actually, that exactly happened. I was looking through my Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And there was this I was hanging out in New York, and there was this really cool guy that John met and like let hang out at his house while I was there.
Yeah.
He was visiting from Ireland. He like ran into him in Central Park and was like, let's be friends, because that's his personality.
That's awesome.
I know. So we hung out for like a couple of days, and before he left to go back to Ireland, he was just here for the summer with his girlfriend to like try to get a job here and turn it into something. It didn't work out, unfortunately. And he got this awesome glass. It was like half mason jar, half real glass, so it didn't look pretentious, but it was still like cool and backwoodsy, which I love. So
that's cool.
I took a photo of it, and I had like this like sparkling beverage in or whatever, and like you know, I took some time to like, you know, like just focus it right and get the right angle. And then I posted it on Instagram, and like I took the photo, and I'm in John's apartment, so like John's like left shoulder and some of his hair is in like the upper left corner of the photo. Everyone's talking about JonTron in the photo. I'm like, what is happening? I took a photo of this thing.
Right, exactly.
So that the moment you said that, like I just started thinking about that. I was like, no, it's it's just funny.
Then you realize you're like, all these people are following me so they can get little glimpses of
John.
Oh my God. What are people going to focus on in our podcast that we overlook. I tell you what, editing the first 3 episodes. So for if you're just picking this up at some point, before we launched our podcast, we did 3 kind of what we figured were like test episodes, but like turned out to be really good. We're like, all right, well, here's the first 3 episodes. Upon editing them, I was just like, man, I say like a lot. I need to like reevaluate that. And I became like self-conscious about it. I was like, I hope that someone doesn't fixate on it and get mad about it. And like, I'm gonna try to work on that and try to be better about that.
Wait, did you say that in the first 3 episodes?
No, I feel like.
Right. I've been cutting down. There's 2 things I've been cutting down on: likes and the word and the terms. I feel like we use that at my job all the time.
Oh,
and like,
dude, I am notorious for saying I feel like.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, I know. No, but yeah, people called us out on the internet, and I actually took note of it. I was like, actually, though, on a serious note, I really would like to intentionally not use the word like to, because I even start to hear it. I mean, it's not a sin. It's, you know, but
no,
it'll come out. But
people do it.
But yeah. I'm definitely like alongside like chilling, just having a good conversation with my amazing friend. Like
yeah, man.
You know, try to cut down on. For myself, I just try to cut.
Yeah, try and be a better orator. Try and be a better. That's my thing. I'm trying to be a better host at this thing. Trying to be conscious about that and self-improve. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool, man. Real quick, I just want to read 2 more things from some questions from travelers. We had some great discussion. So I think his username is the Cinemalog. I think he's the one who started a subreddit for us where we can.
Oh, dude, you are the man. This subreddit is so cool, and
it's great.
We will be checking it and conversing and engaging. Like, there's film students in here. There are people who want to get to know each other. There's back and forths on different movies. Like, I'm all about this life.
I think we can build like a nice little community of just kind of appreciating movies. You know, we don't always have to agree on what movies are good or what we like or don't like about movies, but let's just all agree that we like them and we like talking about them.
Definitely.
So I had a couple people on that I pulled that I thought they said some interesting things about Inception. Song of Storms 12, I think that's his name. He said, Inception remains one of my favorite films to this day due to its depth and engrossing concept. The idea of harnessing dreams as a form of warfare intrigued me from the start, and to this day I'm still interested. For me, I think we talked a little bit about that, that's just an easy way, like it's a nice touchstone for the audience to understand those mechanics and how things work and stuff. And I think it's a really smart way that the movie kind of did that.
Yeah. That's a point I didn't even think about mentioning, that the way that everything works, everyone knows how Inception works already, because all you have to do is go to sleep.
Right.
To get
incepted.
To get incepted, yeah. We get incepted all the time, man.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Cinemalog himself, he said, the story that Nolan is always trying, Inception is the film that perfects the emotion and story that Christopher Nolan is always trying to tell. I think in many ways this film is phenomenal in the way it displays one of the most basic ideas that resonates with us the most, imagination. And I think this film is chock full of it. There's very imaginative ways that this story gets told. You know, it could have been very straightforward. It could have just been like, well, I want to tell a story about a heist, and but Christopher Nolan takes it to this next level and makes it stand alone, makes it something a little more interesting than just like a heist movie. And then there was one. Oh, and then he dropped some knowledge about the way it was shot and stuff. I was like, damn, this dude knows what he's talking about.
Oh yeah.
Wait,
are there any highlights from that? I was curious to know. I know there's a little bit of film noir and stuff, but
yeah, he was talking about the IMAX format and how he was really excited to see it in IMAX and 65 perf and all that. I was like, oh yeah, this guy knows what's up.
Whoa, wait, what? 65? Wait, I want to learn a new technical thing. What's 65 perf? What was that?
Let me bring it up. So some of the sequences in the movie were shot in IMAX. So the way like IMAX film shoots is like the way 35 millimeter film runs through a camera is vertically.
Okay.
So when the film comes in, it kind of runs from top to bottom, and then that's kind of how it gets put together. The IMAX format, the film is larger. It's twice as large as 35 millimeter, but instead of shooting it vertically like that, it's shot horizontally. So the IMAX film runs through the camera horizontally, like so that the on a regular 35, the perfs are on the left and right, and on IMAX they're on the top and bottom. So you get way more. So it's 35 millimeter versus 70 millimeter. So that already is like twice as big, but then shooting it sideways gives you way more like real estate to like expand the frame with. So it's nuts. So like that's kind of like the draw of
dude, I didn't even know. I mean, forgive me. I guess it was 2010. It was a while back. I didn't even know they were shooting with film still. Are people just going straight like digital 4K at this point? From what I heard, 4K is the equivalent of film resolution.
Yeah, 4K is kind of 4K is like the standard-ish right now. It's kind of like what.
Okay, but I guess in 2010 it really wasn't.
Yeah, in 2010 it was still, things were still kind of new. Like the digital cinematography wasn't totally there yet.
Right.
So IMAX just kind of came back into, like, they used to do like nature movies and stuff and big kind of stuff in IMAX, but like Christopher Nolan using IMAX on The Dark Knight, like nobody had done that before. Like nobody had been like, I'm going to shoot an action sequence in this movie using IMAX.
Really?
And Christopher Nolan is a super proponent of shooting film. Like
having some scenes in IMAX and having some scenes
right.
in okay.
But then like he refuses to shoot any of his movies in digital at this point. So
really?
He's just kind of like, he's like not the only guy, but like because his budgets are big enough, he can like afford to do that and like and make movies like that. And then there are some guys who are like,
so shooting digital actually saves money.
For the most, it gives you
for
more,
big productions rather.
For big production, it gives you shooting digitally gives you more like speed. It gives you more like, because with film, like you put a magazine on the camera and you have like 10 minutes of film. That's like all it can handle. That's like 400 feet is 10 minutes worth of footage. And then
I had no idea.
Then you have to take the magazine off. You got to reload it and stuff like that.
That's a lot of logging later.
Yeah, dude, that's
Lord.
exactly what it is. So then, like with digital, it's just like, okay, pop that card out. Let's get another card in there, and then you're good to go. It's it's like it makes things a lot easier. But like the digital cameras weren't up to snuff. Like they couldn't get like the lenses to like look the way film lenses looked, and they couldn't get the look to look the way film. And now like Panavision is making like digital cinema cameras. They're making like cameras that are like made by film people for film people, but are digital. So like even people who were like Roger Deakins is a super famous cinematographer. He was like, I'm only going to shoot film forever. And then he shot one movie digitally and he's like, that was actually pretty nice.
That was pretty nice.
That's pretty good. I'm going to try and keep doing that. So like people are kind of still going that way. But like Tarantino and like and Christopher Nolan are like super proponents of, they're super fans of film at this point.
I see.
But yeah, we've been in this kind of like weird migration to that, and even like a lot of the theaters are now doing digital projection instead of 35 millimeter projections are kind of like going out by the wayside now at this point.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. But what's interesting, what is interesting is that there's still this, especially like for myself, I frequent a lot of like videographer like backwoods like blogs and forums and whatever, and like there's still a huge enthusiasm, and I'm guilty of it myself. That's not guilty, but I do it myself, still making videos, even though like I shoot DSLR, right? Hopefully by the middle of this year that'll change. But I shoot DSLR for now, and in Final Cut I've adopted using what's called Filmconvert, It's a plugin. It's an amazing plugin. It's amazing color grading plugin that is great if you don't want to add DaVinci Resolve to your workflow. Like I've done that once in a while. Like if for something I really, really care about, like I'll shoot it and then I'll arrange it in Final Cut and then I'll export the XML into DaVinci Resolve, color correct it, and then send it back, like round trip it back into Final Cut and finish editing it.
Oh, that's awesome.
But sometimes it gets messy. Sometimes the files don't link perfectly because these are two different pieces of software that don't necessarily talk to each other perfectly.
Right.
Filmconvert is just a plugin that sits within Final Cut, and it lets you color correct, but it also has a huge library of, I think, essentially hundreds of different film cameras. And it'll analyze the algorithm. It'll analyze the visual digital algorithm of your video if you put in the camera that you're using, like the DSLR you're using. So I'll put in Canon T3i, and then the output, I'll choose the camera, the film camera that I want, and it adds an amazing grain that looks like the actual grain. I'll send you videos later, and that plus the color correction creates something that's really like soft and like natural. And even if
that's awesome.
Yeah, even in low light, like the grain overtakes the like tearing and like aberrations you get when you're like shooting in low light and your camera's like, I'm too low budget for this. Because like
awesome.
It's super cool, and you know everybody loves like adding like that film feel, and I don't know if it's because like analog looks realer or just because it looks classy. I can't tell what looks better. Like sometimes digital video, it looks too clean, or maybe not. I don't know.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So when I used to shoot like DV, I spent a lot of time and a lot of money to try and get that film look. Like I spent like a ridiculous amount of money to try and do this.
Wait, can you unpack this? I really want to know. Like,
okay, so
we're getting to know each other, man.
No, I love it. I worked at a community college, and so I had access to their cameras and stuff, and they were good cameras. They were great and stuff like that. But I wanted it to look more film-like. I wanted to be able to put 35 millimeter lenses on. I wanted to be able to put like those kind of lenses to get that kind of depth of field and to work on that. So I spent like, I think it was like $1,200.
Okay.
And this is at a time when like $1,200 was like a lot of money to me. I mean, $1,200 is still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not like a super baller yet.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Like,
I got you.
You know, I was like 21, 22, and I was like, I'm going to spend $1,200 on this.
You get older, and then the thing that was $1, the thing that was $10 seems like $1. The things that was $100 seems like $10. And I'll stop
exactly.
There,
Exactly. So I spent on this thing. It's basically, it was a box with a piece of glass that would like rotate, and you would focus the camera image on this piece of glass, and then it had like a mount for a lens, and the lens would focus an image onto the piece of glass. You're basically filming this piece of glass, but it would give it this like interesting like grain a little bit, but it would also give it that quality that 35 millimeter lenses have, like that depth of field and like the aperture and stuff, and gave it those kind of qualities. So you had this like versatile thing. It was a big pain in the ass because it needed like rails and all this stuff. But so like spending all that to get that, and then you look at like a DSLR and it's like, oh, you just get that right off the bat, and it's clear and crisp and it's nice. And then so I've lived with that DSLR stuff for a while, and then it's just like, but there's something really nice about the way a film grain looks. Like I feel like a film grain gives it a presence and gives it life.
Yeah.
It gives it like and not everything is perfect, and it breathes, and it's just not a still image. It's just, it has this quality to it that moves and adapts to like the light and stuff. It's really cool. I was sitting with the guy who's color correcting our show Smart Guys that we're doing. It's like a sitcom thing, but we shot it on a red, and he was like, man, the the film, like the grain on the red is just so interesting. It just has like such a interesting look to it. Like, and he blew this image up. He like magnified this piece. He's just like, look at it. It just has this like,
oh dude, I want to see that.
It's just interesting. It's really interesting. Like cool. It looked totally different from all the things that I had ever shot before. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Way to go, man. And he was doing the same thing. He brought it into Resolve and was like bringing up these different pieces of, he's like, oh, I could bring up some of the red here. I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is exactly what I want, man. It's cool. We live in a really exciting time to like. You know
what came to mind? If we can't go there here, just let me know.
No, we're going. We're going here, dude.
Like, so when we were at y'all people listening, we were at MagFest. Last week? 2 weeks ago. Last week.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
It's a convention in DC area.
Yeah, Music and Games Festival. There's music. There's games. It was a festival. It was really good. We had a blast. We also had interesting conversations. We were talking about 4K and its relevance, and you mentioned that you kind of asked for like a 4K version of stuff, and the response was essentially why it's not really necessary, not right now. Like, it's a huge file size. It'll just be a nuisance for something that people aren't really taking to just yet.
Right.
I agreed, and as of 2 days ago, I redacted my agreement because okay, all right. First of all, okay, all right. So there definitely is a part of me that's admittedly like, and partially shamefully, an early adopter in a lot of ways. In some ways, 4K doesn't feel like early adoption anymore because we've been talking about it for at least a year now. Like CES, they're talking about 8K now, so there's not even.
Right.
But there just isn't 4K content around. So as far as like relevancy, it's still an irrelevant thing for now. However, for you guys plan on releasing Smart Guys via YouTube, right?
Yeah, we'll have like a digital on-demand release initially, and then
Blu-ray
in 1080 probably.
All of that's happening before it hits YouTube.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll do on demand first. And
I had no idea. So
I don't know. We'll do YouTube in some way. I'm not sure which way yet, but yeah, I know there's like a 4K version that you can do on YouTube. Like, we shot a couple things in 4K and put it on YouTube.
And here's the thing: YouTube compression is objectively it is bad.
Right.
And it always deteriorates the fidelity of the image, and it makes sense because Google has to handle a lot of videos being uploaded.
Sure.
So 1080 is never truly 1080, right? It's kind of like more like, it's a little bit better than 720. It's like a weird middle, right? And sometimes it fluctuates. There are some YouTubers that I follow who have adopted 4K, like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 months ago, and I never used to go out of my way to click the gear to put it into 4K because it just seemed ridiculous. But I started doing that like a couple days ago, and I use my display it's 2.5K, and even on my displays that aren't, like, when I put a YouTube video on 4K, it looks like how it should look. It looks like a Blu-ray, essentially. It looks like 1080p, like full fidelity, and I think it's just like all the extra pixels being like squashed in, like every edge is like really sharp and really nice, and like in my head it was like, okay, this is the context that I can see 4K making sense now. Like, for web video, like compensating for poor web compression, which, by the way, is not an issue on Vimeo. Vimeo has it down, and it makes sense because that's where like videographers go to like post their like actual stuff. Their bit rates are amazing. It's great. Everything looks really good.
Vimeo is a great site for, like, I don't want to say serious content, but like, it's more tailored toward that kind of thing. Yeah.
Have you guys considered, because they have like a store now, have you considered making that a venue for
possibly Vimeo? We were looking at another distributor. It's called VHX. They do stuff. They did like Aziz Ansari specials. They did some of the Louis C.K. ones. So they're kind of like coming up as more like a video on demand kind of thing. So we'd like to do that at some point, but we'll figure that out.
Oh yeah, of course. Were you guys selling episodes or?
I think what we'll do is we'll sell them as a package first.
Sure. Cool.
I hear like some of the things I've been reading are saying like renting is really popular. I mean, I personally don't see that, but I know people who do that, and it makes sense for them. For me, I'm just a completionist and a media hoarder at this point. So
yeah, it's just like if I want it, I want it. Yeah,
right, exactly. So I mean, that makes sense. So I think that's something we'll look into. I like the idea of like a digital on demand thing first, and then
I agree. Yeah,
I don't know about like, it'd be nice to put it on YouTube at some point, but then I feel like we put so much out on YouTube already. I feel like
it almost cheapens it in a kind of
way. Yeah. Like Smart Guys is like special to me, and I wanted to.
It is special. I
feel
agree.
special. Yeah. Thank you.
I agree.
I like
it,
dude.
Everybody listening, you guys need to be super hype. Like when I saw that trailer, I'd never seen that trailer. I saw the trailer that was in the email, but I never saw that trailer. That was so cool.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's coming along. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
I get super hype.
All right. Well, let's wrap up our podcast, Satchel. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Let's wrap up our telecast.
Yes. Yeah.
So there was one last point I wanted to answer. Oh, so Inception.
It's about family.
What would you say?
To answer the second question, it's about family.
It's about family. Exactly. So 5 years later, how does the film hold up to you? Is it still as mind-boggling the first time? Like my fear, I think initially when it first came out, was it had been parodied so much, and it had I don't know, just become, I don't know, diluted, I guess. Like I was afraid that it had lost its meaning. And how do you feel about it now?
In my head, it did not lose its meaning. It just rejuvenated a lot of questions that I never thought to ask when I first saw it 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it has anything to do with me these days intentionally trying to pursue like visual storytelling more, that when I watch it, I kind of see it through a different lens. I don't think that it does. I still felt like I watched it like just a consumer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like pausing it like, oh, well, what kind of lens was that for that thing? It didn't feel that way.
Right.
But watching it, the more that I watch it, the more loose ends it ties off for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I watched it again, I was actually just re-amazed, really. It didn't lose anything for me. In my head, it's still a relevant film. It doesn't feel like, what do you call a party trick? I don't know if you call it a party trick.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. It definitely didn't feel like a party trick later on. Like, oh, hey, that really wasn't that impressive, I guess. Maybe it was just impressive for the time. I guess it doesn't feel dated at all to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was afraid, like there's Inception memes and stuff that have kind of come and gone, and I always think about South Park as like a barometer for what's going on in the world, right? And like, there's a lot of South Park like parody of this thing, and I feel like for me that stuff's kind of died down. I'm kind of like forgotten about that stuff, so now I could like look at it with like clean eyes and be like, oh yeah, I did enjoy this. This was a really good thing before it got kind of like muddled in pop culture and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. Would you recommend this to somebody?
That's interesting. I don't know if I would.
Interesting, really?
I guess I would just recommend something else. Frankly, I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't think I would necessarily. But I think I may be thinking too deep about it. If someone was like, I think I want to watch Inception, I'd be like, yeah, do it. It's great.
Right. Right.
But if someone's like I can watch 10 movies. Which one should I watch?
Yeah.
I don't think Inception would make the list for me.
Yeah, I feel like as much as I like Christopher Nolan, I like this movie as one of his movies. I don't think it's the best movie he's ever done. I don't think it's the worst movie he's ever done. It kind of just falls like, yeah, good movie. Way to go.
Yeah.
Well, Well, good. We answered that question.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about doing, we're going to... the podcast is available. The Telecast is available on iTunes now. So everyone should go subscribe on it there. If you enjoy what we're doing, please, give us a review, give us your thoughts. We would love to hear it. And on the more reviews that we get on the iTunes store, the more of a presence we have. And so we super appreciate it. So I'm going to take 2 seconds and thank some of the people who left us some reviews.
Whoa, look at these people. Look at these reviews.
Good. The first one is from Coyd. It says, "No, seriously, listen to this podcast. It's really good. Nick and Satchell talk about movies. That's the show. Simple, very to the point. I love it." Here is another one from Josh
Palagi?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to say that. "I've been looking for a podcast that really sinks its critical teeth into movies, and I'm happy to say that this has fulfilled that role perfectly. Nick and Satchell are obviously scholars of all things cinema and varied in details. Ideas that they bring to the table, but their genuine passion for movies makes this podcast as palatable as it is thought-provoking."
Oh, dude, thanks, man.
Very nice. Do you have it up? Do you want to read one?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I will read. Sorry, I was like just on the page and then I clicked off to see if there was anything in new and noteworthy. All right, ratings and reviews. I'm gonna read. Oh, cool, John. This one right here, by Johnny Chugs, "Unraveling the Real for Your Consideration."
Oh, that's nice. We might have to steal that.
Yeah, I know. I like that. "The proficiency with which Nick Murphy and Satchell Drakes thoughtfully and diligently unpack movies is a craft that perfectly demonstrates their devotion to the world of cinema. Film buffs and casual moviegoers alike should give this podcast a chance and see if the deep and meaningful dialogue Nick and Satch carry out doesn't tickle your interest and leave you with new perspectives to carry into your own exploration or revisiting of the films that they cover." Damn.
Nice, dude.
Dude, appreciate that, man.
Yeah, we super appreciate that. I'm blushing on the video.
Yeah,
now.
dude. Me too.
Well, thank you guys so much for those. And be sure to tune in 2 weeks from now. No.
Soon.
Be sure to tune in next time for our next film.
Cool, guys.
As always, thank you, travelers, for joining us on this.
Oh, yeah, and follow CA Telecast on Twitter, because there we will be casting out, we'll be letting the world know what movie we're going to cover so that you can give some input on the subreddit. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, man.
And that subreddit is at reddit.com/r/Cinephilia Anonymous.
Boom.
So check it out. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.